So as part of a public service announcement to our dear listeners, I just want to let people know that Nick is running a car boot sale very soon, very, very near to his studio, of lots of exciting photography trinkets, works of art, useful accessories, because judging by what he's been up to all Christmas and the pictures he's been sending me, he's having a big old clear out. Is there anything left in your studio right now, Nick?
I'm guessing you've seen the endless stream of social media posts about
Possibly,
does anyone want this filter? Or, there is, frustratingly still loads left, but I think I need the stuff that's left. I do need, so we're all good there.
Do you really need it then?
No. I'm honest.
What I want to know is how many boxes of cables have you got? Because I've got 5 boxes of cables in this house.
This is why, and I will, I've apologised already, but I was a bit late joining today because I bought myself. You don't have to say that. I bought myself my system inside the cupboards was just basically boxes full of various different amounts of crap, not organised, so that it's all in one thing. So I bought these really nice sort of organised little drawer things that stack up together. And one of those, I thought, well, that'd be perfect to put all of my tripod, the QR plate that I've got loads of. I'll put those in one of those. Could I find it? No. So I think probably new on my next list will be a label printer, so I can print it. I took you 10 minutes to find it.
I've got one of those Dymo printers somewhere down here where at one stage I did label up all of my portable drives, all of my lens caps I labelled, like 85mm, 35mm. And how sad is that? Really exciting afternoon one day, just typing out labels. And then I got a life.
yeah. And then
anyway, how was your Christmas, mate?
It was great. Yeah, very good. Very relaxed. Dawn and I went away on Christmas Day to a place called Minchin Hampton. So we went to a pub there and had our Christmas meal there, stayed the night there, and just really relaxed. It was great. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, much the same. Yeah, family stuff. I had a birthday a couple of days ago as well, so I'm now on the wagon for the rest of the month because I have Christmas, New Year, my birthday in a week.
Oh, of course you did.
So
yeah,
I need to have a month to get my livers to recover after that. So no beers for me. I'm being very, very good for the next month anyway. Shall we start the show off?
I think we should. Yes.
You're listening to The Photography Pod, a show for both working professionals and enthusiast photographers alike. And here's your hosts, Steve Vaughan and Nick Church.
Well, as my dear wife Samantha says, this is The Photography Pod, a show for both working professionals and enthusiast photographers alike. My name is Steve Vaughan, and my good mate here, Nick Church, is also with me. But we also have a guest with us today, a gentleman named Kris Kirkham. Kris, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's great to have you here. So we're going to introduce you nice and early today rather than leave the guest staring at the camera for 10 minutes while we wrap it on, because hopefully we're now going to put the podcast up on YouTube. That's our aim for this year. We're still working out the house and how we're going to do that. But Kris, you're a food photographer. Like
I am
Kris
indeed, yeah.
Last time. Yeah. So tell us a bit about yourself and where you're from.
Actually, I was born here, although it doesn't sound like it. I was born in Watford. But then I grew up in Canada and I moved back here when I was about 26.
Okay, great. And what part of Canada?
West Coast, Vancouver Island.
Cool.
How was your Christmas, Kris?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Thanks. It was busy, but then New Year's was quiet, so it was a good meld of the two.
And have you got a family?
Yeah, I've got a little boy who's 7.5 and a lovely wife.
Cool.
Oh, wow. So did you have family coming over from Canada over the whole season?
It was more in-laws this year.
Right.
Had some cousins from my wife's side joining us from Malaysia, and then my sister-in-law and her partner was here with us as well.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, we're off not too far away. We're off to Vietnam in a few weeks, Dawn and I. So today was spent getting injections, so I've got a very dead left arm.
I'm going to Glasgow.
Oh, are you? Yeah, do you need injections? You do need injections for that, though.
That's just lost all of our Scottish listeners immediately.
So, Kris, as Steve said, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really excited to have you on. We had another food photographer a few weeks ago, Chris Barnett. Do you know Kris at all?
I don't know him personally, but I do know his work, and I quite admire his style.
Yeah, just looking at both your work. I mean, your work and very different, but I just love your photos.
Thank you.
So, from your, I know you used to be a chef. and I'd like to get you to talk about that in a moment. Do you want to just give us a bit of a potted history about how you got into photography?
Funny, people that know me know I'm a planner, and it was kind of my plan since I was about 14. I knew when I was about 9 that I wanted to be a chef. Always loved cooking, helping mom in the kitchen, always eating, planning our next meal while we were eating our first meal. And then I realized about 12 years old that I loved photography. I learned how to develop in the darkroom before I even took my first picture. Had about 3 months after I learned to develop, I had my first picture in the newspaper, in the local newspaper, and I still remember the thrill of seeing it in the paper. And that got me hooked. And when I think I was about 14, I decided, wouldn't it be cool if I learned the cooking and then learned the photography, put them together, and got paid to travel around the world and take pictures of food.
Amazing.
And then hopefully eat it.
Yeah. That's a pretty good goal to have. I know that I do various training courses, and one of them, one client I worked with recently is really into food photography. We got a question from her later on, and she also loves food. And I guess that must be hand in hand, or is that just an assumption? That
not always. I've heard of. I haven't met them, but I've heard of food photographers that don't love food, and I don't understand how you could do it. Really, if I feel like it shows if you love it or not when you're shooting it.
I guess it's a bit like, I know some wedding photographers that don't like people. So,
that's fair though.
that's why Kris takes pictures of gorgeous looking food. She hasn't got it.
Food does not talk back.
Oh, true.
No. So was there, when you so you had this mission as a young man to start this career in food and hopefully photography. Was the becoming a chef and working in that environment, was photography always there in the background with the plan that would take center stage at some point?
I'd say I got so involved in the chefing that I probably forgot about it for a while. And I really enjoyed photography as a hobby.
Is being a chef quite busy then? You surprised me.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Just a bit.
But yeah, I would say I was doing photography a lot as a hobby, but I wasn't actually thinking about it as a career. And then I went, actually, do you know what? I think I really want to focus on this and get into it. And at the time I was in Canada and Montreal. And there was 3 courses that interested me in the world. One was in Vancouver, where I grew up. One was in LA, and one was here in London at the London College of Communications. And I thought, I've got my British passport. I was born in the UK, and I wanted to come and check it out.
Amazing. So, but other than you having your British passport, it was a relatively sort of just, finger in the air to take a pick at those 3 places.
Pretty much.
Well, you made the right choice as far as we're concerned. We're very pleased.
I think so as well. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
I'm just going to play. Well, if you don't mind, Steve, I'm just going to put some of Kris's photos.
Yeah.
Now, when I created this slideshow, I dragged all the screenshots from my desktop, and I realised that slide 10 was my tax return. So
let's start with that then. What's this on here, Nick?
Yeah. There we go. So, it's just such vibrant work, and we're going to come into sort of the process around this. Well, one thing I think a couple of these pictures will show that you've got to work with some really major brands: Subway, M&S, Sainsbury. Steve, do you think our listeners are Sainsbury's shoppers, or are they more your Morrisons, do you think?
Oh, they're definitely Sainsbury's.
I would say so.
Waitrose, yeah. I would say probably as well. Yeah. Definitely. No.
I'm sure many of the listeners have seen Kris's work in the Sainsbury's magazine, and probably M&S as well. Kris, how did that happen, to have such major brands sort of, to end up collaborating with them?
Slow, tedious, hard work and knocking on people's doors, getting people to give you a chance, and then knowing that your last job has to be your best job. It doesn't matter how good you were 10 jobs ago. If you're not good enough in delivering on that last job, you're not going to get hired again. So even though some people would be like, oh, it's a fantastic shoot, I'd be like, okay, I'll believe you when you hire me again. That was my thing.
Because that's often the feedback, is that I'm sure most listeners, that if people have done any work, sort of paid work, is you always get great feedback. And even the rare occasion that you get sort of any non-great feedback, it always starts with, oh, they're amazing. And then a couple of days later, just a couple of points. It always starts off great. Yeah. So was working with, let's say, M&S and companies like that, was that a goal that you had, or was elevating your work the goal, and that just was the result of it?
Both. I think they go hand in hand. So I remember, when I was in Canada, I used to subscribe to Waitrose Food Illustrated back in the day when it was called that, and looking at it and going, wouldn't it be so cool to, one day have a photo in here or get on the cover? And then I remember when that happened, and I was really quite pleased and chuffed with myself when that happened. But yeah, if you're not good enough, you're not gonna be on the shoot list. So
sure.
Yeah, you've got to keep pushing and trying, and motivating yourself to go further.
I think that's such a good point. I think it's something I've mentioned on the podcast before, that having that view of thinking, well, I'm really pleased where I am now, but I can still see I've got some way to go to get to where I want to be. Having that mindset and being able to identify the things you need to change is what will get you there, and that will keep you pushing forward.
Absolutely. You need to keep evolving always.
So, sorry, Steve, just going on to Kit, did you want to talk, Steve, about anything around?
Well, I was just going to say, looking at your work now, which is gorgeous, really, and we will share this on the YouTube channel, and comparing you with Kris we had on last time, or Nick had on last time, whose work's also gorgeous, but it's a very different look to your images. So I think your images look very contrasty, punchy, if I could use that phrase. Colourful, very much the kind of sort of photography that I love. Really, is that a deliberate style that you've come up with?
Absolutely. I love drama, contrast, punchy colors. It's just kind of something I've always been drawn to.
Me too.
Edward Weston was one of my, favorite photographers when I was studying, along with Ansel Adams and stuff like that. But I loved Edward Weston's food photos, and I loved how contrasty they were, and that was kind of really drew me in. And I was like, okay, this is something I want to pursue.
It does work perfectly for these shots. Just they're very appetizing. I've not had a proper meal today because I've been so busy. So looking at these photos, and I've got some whiskey as well. So I've got a Burns night coming up. So
don't. I'm not allowed any. Torture.
Torture. Yeah, we keep looking at these pictures then. What's your setup, Kris? Your for terms of lighting and camera kit?
It depends on the job, really. It really does. If I'm in the studio, which is kind of my preferred option, I'm usually shooting on a Phase 1 with a IQ1 100 digital back. Mm-hmm. If I'm out and about at a restaurant or a location, I've usually got a 5D Mark IV, which is kind of my workhorse.
Is that based on my very small sample of 2 food photographers? We're so far looking at 100% medium format. Is that is that common across this sort of higher end part of the industry?
Absolutely, I think it is. It's not just about image size; it's also about the quality of the sensor, the pixels, everything else like that.
Well, I guess the food isn't running around anywhere, is it? It's not. You don't need. The food is where it is, so you've got everything under your control, the lighting and everything else. So why not use technology to get you the best possible image? Obviously, budget on that.
Absolutely, so. Everything is manual focus. Yeah. Everything is,
Oh, fascinating. And you say that you would, is that your preferred option to just get the stuff, bring it into your studio, and then design the sort of surroundings yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't say design myself, but it's definitely a team effort. I love crafting an image with a team. I'm only as good as the food stylists and prop stylists that I work with as well. I think they're just as important to the image as I am. And then an art director, if we're lucky enough to have one as well. I think the more people we have, the more they bring to the image, but also the image grows and it becomes more about the image than any one person, which is something I really enjoy.
Yeah,
what I'm interested
I
in,
totally get that.
Yeah, and so do I. And what I'm interested in as well is if I'm hard to imagine, but if I'm a marketing director of Marks and Spencer's, really hard to imagine. Do they come to you and say, or do they come to the agency and say, this is what we want, go and photograph it? Or do they say, I don't know, we've got a new Christmas product line coming out, they'll probably photograph it in June, I don't know. Do you come up with, or do your team come up with the ideas, the approach? How does it work? Where does the creativity come? Where does the idea come from?
I mean, a big job like that, you'll have probably at least two or three photographers testing, and just you might have 3 or 4 products in a day, and you're just trying different looks that either an art director's come up with, or it is all part of a team. So you're all contributing and saying, what about this? Why don't we try this? Right. And then you get, of those 2, 3, 4 photographers that are doing it, somebody will produce something, hopefully, that everybody back in HQ loves, and then that's the way forward.
And do you ever get in a situation where they say, well, we'd really like to do this, and you say, well, I don't think that's a good idea, I think we should do it that way? Or is it
not with M&S, but it has happened with other clients.
Any client.
Sure. I think I would say that my feedback is always, I'll do whatever you like. You're paying me for my opinion, and my opinion is that this won't work. But if that's the way you want to go, then let's go that way.
Fascinating. Yeah.
I guess it's similar to me as well. That if I will, I know some sort of weddings or commercial photographers will avoid certain jobs if they think, well, that's not my style. I think, well, if they're paying and they want to pay for it, then that's absolutely fine. It just, maybe it won't be, that's the wedding I'll put on my website. But if
absolutely.
But I think it's really interesting that you and I totally get that idea of having a team around you where everyone's exceptional at a particular part of it. Because for it's probably fair to say most professional photographers are sort of one-person bands, and you end up doing everything, and some bits aren't really in your locker. That they're like, if I'm doing if I was setting up some of these shots, that wouldn't be it. That'd be so far out my comfort zone. I wouldn't have a clue, but I would still do it, and I have done some food photography, but it's well outside my comfort zone, and I can see that having somebody else just putting input into it would just elevate it massively.
I think it also probably gets, after time, it gets stale, wouldn't it? It wouldn't change or evolve too much. It would just be you, and yeah.
And I wouldn't know what to, I could change it every time, but I wouldn't know if it's looking any better, particularly where's extra input coming in. Is just, that would be, a real godsend to have that kind of thing. And I think it's something that certainly a lot of photographers that I've met, sort of enthusiasts and otherwise, would feel a little bit uncomfortable about that aspect of it. They kind of want to sort of keep everything in there, in a walled garden where everything's their thing, and actually saying, do you know what? I think let's have this expert on this area. I can do these bits, and I'll create the final image and the image quality that we need. Certainly, I know that there's a lot of photographers that are quite against collaboration, and it's
well, the control freaks. Let's be honest. Many photographers want to control everything, don't they?
Yeah, but you're just limited.
I know photographers that put together their own kitchens in the studio, but then the kitchen falls down, and it costs them more time and more energy than it's worth. So it really is kind of.
Well, that's the other thing, of course. It's not just about where the skill level is. It's that if somebody could do the same job but much better, more quickly, while you focus on other stuff that's going to be more valuable.
Same reason I have an accountant.
Yeah, quite. Yeah.
Exactly. So does Nick with his tax return. Yeah.
I'd need one if that had gone out on the public broadcast. I was saying.
Do you want me to cut that bit?
No. I've got an accountant, all above board. That short stretch I did a few years ago, that's all behind me now.
What's the most unusual thing you've been asked to photograph, Kris?
Ooh, tricky question. I think pet food.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I do. I'd say my work, it's quite varied. I'll do packaging. I'll do editorial, and I'll do advertising and advertorial kind of stuff. But packaging, sometimes you have to shoot dog food. Not necessarily dog food, but like the carrots and the celery and the meat that goes into the dog food, and made sure it fits on a bag or whatever needs to be done.
Okay, so it's not the actual content of
It's
the
not.
bag.
It's not all. Well, yeah, exactly. But it's not all glamour. I'll tell you. Like,
no.
Do you work on projects that are less glamorous? Like it may be something that's not that's in the food ecosystem, but it's not something that would look great on the front of a magazine. Sort of.
Sure, absolutely. I do a lot of packaging work. Most of my packaging work, which you go into Tesco's or Sainsbury's or Waitrose or Lidl, and you pick up a ready meal, and there's photos on it. And most people don't even realize it, but none of it is really stuff you want to put on in front of a magazine or even probably on your website. But it looks. I mean, it still actually has probably more skill needed in those kind of shots than anything else.
Yeah, but we were talking before Nick joined us, before we started recording, about you listen to psychology podcasts and things, and I don't know a lot about retail, but I know there's a lot of psychology about where they position things in the supermarket at certain points of the store, and how they look at how people look at the shelves, and I guess the photography of the packaging is a key part of that, really, in terms of getting people to buy the M&S kind of beans as opposed to the unknown brand kind of beans, whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's different here than it is in the US, and I think consumer really leads the way on how things get done. And I don't know about your local store, but my local store down the road is changing their layout every 6 months. I can never find anything because they're always changing it. They're always trying to find something, a better way to put it out.
I think it's a man thing, actually, but still. Yeah.
But presumably because you're trying to find it, and you think, oh look, there's that item that I've never seen before. Yeah, so you fill your basket full of stuff. That's actually, I've never thought about that. I know it sounds really stupid. I've never thought about the packaging is probably the most viewed food photography out there.
Absolutely. I would say at least 60 to 70% of the time I can walk into somebody's house and find some of my work.
Wow.
Yeah. Just because it's on a packet of something that they've gone out and bought.
Incredible. Yeah. That must be quite satisfying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. My son, who's like, Dad, why do you keep pointing out all the pictures that you took? Like, okay, stop. Like, look, that's my image. And like, okay, Dad.
And they can. I can tell you, as your son grows up, they continue to be disinterested. However huge the accolade you may suddenly want to bring home and share, they go, oh right, yeah. Can I go back to whatever I was doing now?
Yeah, no.
Although I had one good time. So I do at the moment I'm shooting all of the recipe cards for Waitrose. So you walk in a Waitrose and you pick up one of the recipe cards. Those are mine. They've been mine for about 2.5 years now.
Oh gosh.
But I had my son with me on a summer holiday one day at work, and he was helping me with the shoot. So when they came out, I think we were shooting in August. They came out in November, and they came out. He took them into show and tell for his school. Like, look, I helped with all these pictures, and so he actually liked that one. That was good.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
fantastic. Love it. Yeah.
I think I let him press the shutter button, so he was saying, "Oh, I took the picture.
That one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So if I was somebody listening to this thinking I would like to get into food photography, I see that as something I want to get started into now. Without wishing to generate more competition for you, because I'm sure there's plenty for all of us. But where would you suggest you started? Somebody listens to this thinks I would love to do that. Where would you start? How do you get going?
It's tricky. I mean, I probably have the same answer as Christian, which was don't. But not in terms of the competition. I love the competition. It makes us better, I think.
Completely.
But I would say that I find it getting very watered down, at least the food photography industry. There's a lot of food photographers out there, and not all of them, or probably most of them, aren't producing that high quality of imagery. And it's almost disheartening to see that sometimes people don't know or don't care. I'm not sure which one it is, but that can be quite a frustrating part. But then, the art directors, the team I work with, they can see it, they know, but it's more kind of everybody has a camera and everybody is so inundated with imagery that sometimes people only look at an image for half a second and they don't necessarily look for the quality or the lighting, or if something's even in focus. It can be that aspect of it can definitely be a bit frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah,
but if you were really gonna get into it, I think I view photography as a trade. I know so many students that come out of university studying photography and can't work a camera or tell me what the difference between a shutter and an f-stop and an ISO is. Wow. I think I would much rather somebody be an apprentice and an assistant and learn and really just hands-on training. I think that's the best way. Go and work for somebody, probably for not much money, enough to get by, but it's paid education.
This is all good stuff, because the food photographer or aspiring food photographer that I've worked with, this is basically the advice I gave, is you just need to just do all little bits here and there. If you want to start earning money from it, then you're going to need something else, alongside that to be able until you're getting to that point. But she loves to bake and cook as well. So and she'd love to be able to create photos from her own food. And it's just difficult to know how you could monetize that, because who's going to want to buy a picture of someone else's food? It's going to be a corporate client. I also I totally get this idea of a lower, as you see the food photography kind of market, you're at the high end of this, and this is where people are much more discerning, and they're looking for certain things. It's not just about, they know about photography, they also have very clear ideas on their branding, what the vibe for the photo they want to give, whether it's a Christmassy thing, all these other things. As it gets down lower, it does mean that people just are looking for the cheapest option, because it all sounds.
That's a ghost in the house.
Ghost, yeah.
I'm just going to deal with the poltergeist, guys. Won't be a second.
The ghost of photography past. So I think you see the same in commercial photography. I had a client just yesterday that wanted a quote to shoot his Airbnb. Gave a quote. He said, I've had a much lower quote from another photographer, and that's fine. It's not like a binary job where you either do it or you don't. There's a range of quality and outcomes, and I think that's much easier to explain to people that are going to understand that. But they're at the higher end, and so getting over that big hump must be quite a challenge, I think.
Absolutely. And I mean, the one thing I always say to my assistants is that don't go out too early, because once you go out, you can't go back to being an assistant. And if you haven't learned everything you need to learn, you can get yourself into a world of trouble. And you'll only ever be, if you're only at 50%, you're only ever going to get to 50% unless you can really teach yourself some new tricks, which is really quite difficult. Mm-hmm. Much easier to learn from photographers that know how to do it and who have learned themselves,
Yeah, but then you're definitely relying on looking at someone else's photos and thinking, right, I need to learn, find out how they've done that, then learn how to do it myself. But plenty of us can't.
It's pretty hard. Yeah.
Untangle that.
It's pretty hard. Because I was a chef for 15 years, I really relate everything to food in my own head. And the chefing industry was such that you would go and you would work in a restaurant for 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. You'd learn as much as you could from that chef. And then you move on to another restaurant and you'd learn from another chef. And eventually you'd start to create your own style and put it all together. And that's kind of what I encourage my assistants to do. Most of them work for me for about 2.5 years, 3 years, and then they go off and they assist another great food photographer and then another great food photographer. And after 4 or 5, 6 years, they've kind of taken what they like from me, they've taken what they like from somebody else, and they are now successful photographers because they can do something that's their own style. Mm-hmm. Whereas instead of just copying me, I had an assistant once who was just assisting me and showed her work to an art director, and the art director said, it looks like a watered down version of Chris's. Why would I hire you when I can get Kris? Mm-hmm. And it's just it's so true. You need to create your own style and your own look, but how do you do that? And I think the best way to do that is by going and learning bits from different highly skilled individuals.
Yeah. Where do you see the future for your business? Where do you see yourself in 10 years' time, Kris?
Do you know what? I don't know. I think definitely very similar to what I'm doing at the moment. I love my job. I enjoy getting up, going to work. I think there'll be more AI involved. I think there'll probably be more moving involved, which I'm okay with. I'm on board with that. And just kind of still creating luscious, fantastic food images, I think that'll definitely be what I'll be doing in 10 years.
I'm sure there'll be demand
I
for
think
it.
that 2 years that you mentioned is an interesting one, because that is, quite well known across all industries, including the software engineering industry, which I was in before photography. That in any role, that's 2 years is a really good gap, because you go past the really hard bit, where it's a vertical learning curve. Then you start learning tons and tons, and it becomes really exciting. After around a year and a half, 2 years, it starts to flatten out. You start to learn at a less quick pace. And then you flip, you go to a different company, and that starts again, and you keep progressing. Then you get to a certain point where you think, right, this is perfect, it's comfortable, and that kind of thing. And that's, I think, what I've got to, where I was feeling that I was just doing the same sort of thing. I wasn't progressing, I wasn't learning new things. I was good at my job, but it was the same 1 year from the year before. And that's when I started to really feel like I want to do something different. Do you think, though, Kris, that when you, because I'm always thinking, like, as you said, I don't really have a mission in 10 years in the future. I'm always looking at, what I want to do this year, the next couple of years. But I do have this feeling that if in 2 years' time I'm doing the same thing, then I suspect I'll change to just always be migrating a little bit and just changing and tweaking things. And so do you think that's the case with you, that you just want to keep moving forward, and not necessarily forward, but just keep moving a little bit in either direction and changing things up?
Absolutely. I hate getting bored, and I get bored easily. So
Yeah, me too.
I quite often will feel that if I feel like I'm getting bored or tired, I will test. I love to test. I love to have projects that I can just, sink my teeth into and completely collaborate with other people. It's never just about me. It's about, again, the team, but also, creating something completely different that is. The thing about photography, I think, is that you quite often get pigeonholed. Oh, Kris does really good, contrasty and punchy images. And sometimes I create something that's a bit more wispy, just to decide if I like it or not. And if I don't like it, I'll go back to doing what I am. But that's the way I move my style forward, I think, is kind of just trying different things and testing and shooting and collaborating and having fun.
Never stop learning. I think that's the key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you have any...
Go on,
sorry, Steve.
Yeah,
I have one more question. Do you have any, and this will be one for you as well, Steve, did you have any New Year's resolutions, Kris?
Yeah, I want to test more. I want to give myself that creative space a bit more. I think it's very easy to, as a freelancer, you get a job in, you take it, but then if you get busy, you never get any of that creative time. So
Absolutely,
I think that's where I'm at this year, is definitely making sure that there's space for that creative time.
What about you, Steve?
I don't tend to make New Year's resolutions. I set myself goals, really, but apart from the obvious ones like lose weight, stop drinking so much, get more exercise. I want to read more. I used to read. I used to devour books when I was a young man, and I don't read anymore. I think that's again back to what we were saying about the short attention span we get with photography now. Everybody's consuming things quickly. Podcasts is another example. But I want to find time to read more. There's loads of books I'd love to read, and I've never sat down and read them. But whether I will do or not, I don't know. What about you?
Well, mine was like last year, music related. So that my outlet from making myself do something different and keeping creative is often, it can be photography, can be drawing, or music. So most recently it's been music. So I've been collaborating with a friend of mine, Andrew Thompson, on music, and we had our stuff released actually in December on Spotify and Apple Music. Farthest North is my artist name, if anyone's listening.
Farthest North.
Farthest North, just to avoid having Nick Church in the title, because I've got Nick Church in every other aspect of my business. So I'll be doing more of that. I do find that really collaborative. Working with somebody else as a wedding photographer and commercial photographer, it's not something I do very often at all. So, if I work with someone else, it's generally a videographer. And so we're just fulfilling two completely separate parts. I never have input into the same project. And so I'm finding that really amazing and really love doing that.
So
I want to do more different things.
Nick? What kind of music are you doing? Yeah.
It's indie rock, alternative rock.
Right,
I guess.
Okay.
Right.
So if anyone listens and they sense a bit of a Pearl Jam thing going on, then that probably covers it.
Are you into music, Kris?
Yeah, I Usually like to have something on in the background. Don't necessarily care what it is, but then there's times when I'm like, yeah, okay, this is exactly what I want to listen to. Pearl Jam. I want to listen to some AC/DC, or it's definitely always
wow.
80s. Yeah.
Now you're talking my language. Nick knows I do a radio show once a week. I do a classic rock show once a week. So that's the kind of stuff I play all the time. Yeah. So
I find that sometimes you think, oh, I really want to have some music, and then instantly I think, this bloody music, I can't concentrate, and I have to turn it off immediately.
Yeah.
And I don't know at what point that suddenly happens, but it's really immediate. Like,
you just go, what are we listening to?
I can't concentrate with this shit playing, and then it's something that I really love, But yeah.
There we go. What I was going to say, Kris, is it's been great finding out more about yourself and about your photography, which is absolutely awesome. And thank you so much for coming on the pod. Please stay on and join us. We're just going to have a bit of a knock around about a few things in the industry generally, but feel free to chip in if you think you've got anything you'd like to add to the conversation. So, Nick, what have we been up to in terms of what's going on in the world of photography since we last spoke?
In the world of photography, well, we had excuse me, we had a couple of questions from our gorgeous listeners, one of which you already put to Kris, who answered perfectly about how to get into it and that kind of thing. Get into food photography, this is. So that was good. The other one is, rather than it being a question from a listener, it's in some Facebook groups that I'm in, photography focused Facebook groups, all talking. It just seems, these topics group together, don't they? So just the way the random events always group together. There's I think there's a philosophy called the plum pudding something or other, where if you distribute fruit in a cake, they'll tend to clump together because random events tend to do that. Anyway, so the outcome of that
deep and meaningful.
I know. Well, it's always right there.
We've got a chef here. He knows more about that kind of stuff. So
I did mention I haven't eaten properly today, so my blood sugar's very low, and I've had injections, so anything could happen. It's the topic of copyright, in particular music, when used on films and that kind of thing. And a lot of people are asking, what can you use? I mean, I use wedding videos as an example, but the same could apply to a film of some food or other products or anything else. That can you use commercial music? And it seems that the general answer that everyone's giving is absolutely you can, as long as in YouTube land you just tick the box saying you're happy that they get all the ad revenue. And that's the advice is completely wrong.
Absolutely.
So it's like dangerously wrong. It could be right, that's going to close down your business and take your house away, wrong. And also it's not just, because in some forums, everyone feels like they have to answer a question, right? You put a question to someone on Facebook, people will give an answer where they've got zero clue what they're talking about. But this is people that are established filmmakers that are giving this advice. And so, as I explained there, and they're two completely separate things, but licensing a piece of music is totally different than how it's shared and broadcast. So the assumption is, I mean, there is this fair use policy within UK copyright law, and that however much you try and make it fit wedding photography, it isn't going to do it. You cannot say that wedding film is a personal use or fair use for music. So you need to have the right license in place. And if it's so on one level, if it's something where you put it on, and they still use phrases like DVD or USB stick, so it's old fashioned, the legislation. But if it's on a DVD, excuse me, it's termed this single use thing that's going to be given to somebody. And the idea is it's for their use only. You still need a license, but the license is quite it's very restrictive, but also quite cheap. So you're looking at 20 quid, 50 quid, something like that. That may still, for some people, if they're either not charging because they're doing it as a favor, which a lot of our listeners might be doing, that's suddenly 50 quid that they have to spend that they're not getting paid for. Problem comes then when you do put it onto YouTube, and then two things happen. Firstly, there's the royalty aspect of when it's being played, who gets the ad revenue and all the rest of it. So that is handled by YouTube, and that's the mistake that people think. Oh, it says it's all fine on YouTube, therefore it's all fine. The problem is that once you put it onto any broadcast medium, then you're broadcasting that piece of content, and the rules completely change about licensing. And this is where we get into, if if a couple wants a Perfect by Ed Sheeran, then you're looking at a couple of $100 grand, $50 grand, $100 grand, something like that, to license that for use for a commercial product that's going to be broadcast. And and so they're just very separate things. And I just would urge people, I mean, sure, you can use it. Of course you could use it. And are you going to get sued? Probably not. But it's the same way that you could not declare your income. You probably won't get audited by HMRC, but you may well do.
You never know.
And if you get audited by HMRC, it's going to be a lot damn sight cheaper than being hunted down by Warner Brothers or something over use of a product. So I think people just do need to be a bit careful. And and I'm not even an expert on it. That's literally all I know about it. But it's enough that I know that's why places like Artlist and Soundstripe and all these other platforms exist. They wouldn't exist if everyone could, if everyone just steal music from elsewhere. So
Kris,
I thought that was just
pensive on this. What's your thoughts on this? Is this something that comes across?
No. I mean, I've done a few food videos, and completely knew that you can't do that. But also, what if a situation was reversed? If somebody was using my images and making things and selling it, I would be really upset about it, and maybe not have the funds behind me like Warner Brothers to chase them down and take somebody's house away from them. But definitely, I wouldn't be happy about it. So I wouldn't necessarily want to that's another artist.
A really good point, actually. And that is would be a really good argument to sort of counter it, to say that for somebody saying, no, I can use piece of music on a film, blah, blah, blah. It is like saying, okay, let's say you're a music artist and you're using loads of Kris Kirkham's images, as that's the video for it. It's just a load of images. And what the argument that's being given is, as long as Kris gets the revenue for the 45 views on YouTube, that's fine, and that's clearly like 30 cents, so that clearly isn't right, to be able to do that. So, that's a very good use case, actually.
I guess the thing to take away from this really is, don't take the risk, really. What does an artist subscription cost? 120 quid a year or something?
Yeah.
Or at least be a limited company so that you don't get your house taken away from you.
If you're a director, though, still. I think I'm a limited company. Are we all limited companies here?
What about you, Steve? Anything in your photography world?
Well, one thing I didn't notice, and it just popped up again in the Facebook group, really. So, I don't know if you're familiar with this, Kris, but in the wedding industry, when you sell an album, the album manufacturers, so people like Folio, Sim, Queensbury, these kind of companies, they sell the album to us, and then we obviously mark the album up to give it to the couple. And it's on the understanding that the album companies only supply professional photographers. So a wedding album, I don't know, typically 400 quid, Nick, to buy for us, something like that. Depends on what supplier.
Depends where. Yeah, if it's in the Far East or something like that, and it's loads cheaper. But in UK, sort of 200 to 400, I guess.
Yeah, it depends on the supplier. So then the couple would pay. I mean, we typically double the price. Now, I kind of lose the cost of it in the overall price the customer pays, because I think if you say an album's 800 quid, they're going to go. But if you say the wedding's going to cost $2.5 grand, and that includes an album, that's a different matter.
Yeah.
But I noticed one of the main manufacturers, a company we used to use until recently, which is Folio Albums, have now just announced they're selling direct to end users. So I wonder. So I wonder what it's going to mean in terms of how they're going to promote it.
That's a pretty risky move, that, because if I was using Folio, I definitely wouldn't continue to use them, because you can't. It's a little bit of just an unspoken thing that you are going to mark up stuff, and if you expose the price to your end clients, then it looks like you're just taking the mickey and just like doubling the price, which is annoying, because it is like going to a high end restaurant and saying, well, that main course 50 quid, those ingredients only cost £18, well, and not taking into account the fact that all the work, the time, the running the business. All of the that's just that one meal. For if you're taking the chef example, what about all the other time the restaurant's closed? The business still needs to run, and so it's a little bit unfortunate that they do that. I hope that doesn't become I hope we retain the idea that there's suppliers that can supply the photography industry without opening their doors. I can see why they might want to, because they're going to be able to get loads more customers. But
well, are they though, really? Because I mean, doing a wedding album is a pain in the backside. unless you've got the tools to do it. So we use smart albums. I don't know if you use anything similar, Nick, or
the album company I use have a design app on their website. So it's you're dragging and dropping layouts and creating new layouts and dropping photos into it. It's dead easy, and a couple could easily do it themselves.
Right, I think that's the thing. As long as they're offering a sort of a front end to make it easy to do, with smart albums, we can do an album in 5 minutes.
Yeah,
because you literally just throw them on the screen and keep clicking until you get a layout you like. But if they're expecting people to upload each picture and then move it around and resize it, then couples ain't going to do that, clearly. But if
like a magazine, like let's say the M&S magazine or Sainsbury magazine, it's not just sticking images in place; it's curating it so that the tones will work and the flow works for one thing. And there's certainly with things like a wedding where it's a story that story being told sort of aesthetically as well as, and that is the thing. Whenever there's if I have clients that say we're not going to have an album, we're going to do it ourselves. They might be in the design field themselves. When they try and do it, they normally come back and say, actually, do you mind doing it? Because they want black, that just things like you don't really want to mix black and white with color. It's kind of a bit jarring and it's just not an obvious thing to be able to do. Or it seems like it might be really obvious, but it's not when you actually try and do it. So, well, let's hope that, I can see, I can see why they'd want to do it if I was an album company. But I think they will then, who was it? Folio,
yeah.
So
they're going to be to high end supplier, aren't they? Let's be honest, price wise. Yeah.
I think the problem they've got there is that couples or your average resident, what are they called? What non-professional purchaser of that thing? Whoever. I can't think of a term to describe. yeah, that's it. So you're saying that everyone in the world that is a photographer is a customer. That can't be the right name.
Everybody else is a photographer, yeah.
But they're going to be looking at things like holiday. They might be doing their own wedding, I suppose, but they're going to be looking at cheaper options, I would guess. They're going to be looking at photo box.
So. iPhone prints and stuff like that, I'm assuming as well. It's not going to be a professional camera that they're using.
Yeah.
Uploading from.
No, that's a good point, actually, because if it was my images that I'd taken and I've shared them with the couple, through something like Big Time, and they've downloaded the images, then how am I going to feel about somebody taking those images and putting them into an album? I don't know.
No, I don't mind. I mean, it comes back to copyright if they're starting to crop and things like that, doesn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good point. It'll be interesting to see what happens on that and see where it goes. The only other thing in terms of personal photography, we've got a wedding coming up in a couple of weeks. We did one just before Christmas, but I've got out on the streets a bit recently. So, street photography is an absolute passion of mine, even though I'm not very good at it.
I think that you talk yourself down, Steve. There's some great shots in your last
Thank you.
post.
It's very kind. Yeah, it's very kind. Just to be able to get on the street, and I was saying to Kris before you joined, it was the Friday the 3rd. I got out into London. It was a beautiful sunny day, and we were talking, about your work, Kris, and contrast and all that. And I love all that. I love the shadow and light and all that diversity, really. And when it's like that, I can just walk and walk and walk. And I think I did 12 miles on Friday.
Oh, wow.
Just along the South Bank, past Tower Bridge, over across, back into the city, bit of street photography, and then, something to eat and train home, really. But it doesn't feel like if I said go for a 12-mile walk now with a dog, I think, it's a drag. Because you're out in the street looking for things, time just goes so quickly. Do you guys do anything similar like that, just to pass the time and lose yourself in something?
Well, for me, it's either motorcycling or mountain biking. When I say mountain biking, just cycling. Just to do something completely different, where I can just think about something completely different without sort of the overarching spectrum of I should be doing some work. So that's my thing. And if it was like last weekend, Dawn and I went down to Charmouth Beach, absolutely beautiful beach, gorgeous sunny day. Walked up over Golden Cap, and that was a really, took some just phone photos because, as you know, I'm allergic to taking my camera out. Another resolution for 2025, but that was another, just time where it was just thinking, what great views, capture some images, and it was lovely. Yeah.
What about you, Kris? Do you do any photography for fun?
No, not for fun. Honestly, I'm like Nick. I don't take my camera. It's not so much the taking of pictures; it's the editing. I just never seem to download them and get onto it. So I use my iPhone and some Snapseed for some personal photos. That's pretty much all I do. But
why not?
For me, I think probably the only thing I do outside of day-to-day life on a regular basis is I do CrossFit, and I do that so I don't think. You can't think when you do that. You just head down for 60 minutes and hope you survive, really.
Just counting down the minutes until it's all over.
No, you're lucky if you can count.
I'm like that when I play golf, but that's another story. Yeah. I definitely can't count when I play golf, but as my mates would tell you.
Count down the shots until it's all over, like down from 150. No,
it was only 5, honest. It wasn't 6, it was definitely 5. Anything else we want to talk about, guys, before we wrap up today?
No, I think that's been great. Thanks so much, Kris, for being generous with your time this evening.
Absolutely.
Really fascinating.
Fun.
Yeah. And in terms of guests coming up, Nick, you tend to do the recruitment on the other guests, and you do a great job.
We have got a landscape photographer coming up who I will. So I'll put that into the Facebook group. So I'll put that in there. I'll also share notes from today's episode, which have some more of Kris's photos in there as well. But yeah, landscape photographer that who is also having a book coming out. Shortly. Is there anything else, Kris? Anything else you want to promote? You got anything coming up?
I know I'm up to Windsor Photographic Society in March. I'm doing a talk there. If anybody wants to come and see me in person.
Great. Well, that's a good shout. Yeah,
I'll make a note of that. We'll put that in the show notes. Yeah. Okay. Well, as Nick mentioned, we do have a Facebook group, dear listener. So please join up on the Photography Pod Facebook group. Totally free. But it's a good chance to see some examples. What we are looking at doing, and then again, a bit of a teaser here, we are looking at possibly setting some little competitions. So we're going to think of some particular topics and then put it out there for people perhaps to put some images in to win something exciting out of Nick's cupboard of doom in his studio down there. So it might be,
something in the category that I don't want to get rid of. I'm not going to use again either. I've got too many of them already, so there's a box full of stuff.
It might be a 1980s Kodak Instamatic with flash cubes, but something like that. But anyway,
I've got that on my shelf. That's my that's my ornament.
That's for the future. And we are also talking around a meetup as well. We're trying to get a meetup going in London where perhaps we do with a street photographer. So to find out more about that, you make sure you join the Facebook group. Just call it the Photography Pod, and you'll find out a bit more. Thanks for listening to us, dear listener. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time. Until then, happy shooting out there, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, bye.